Thank you. Thank you, Ross. Good panel to kick off. Let me introduce the panelists, and then we'll get going. Sargi Mann, to my immediate left, is Executive Vice President and Head of Digital Strategy and Investments at Havas Media Group. She's been Brand Manager at the RAI Foundation, Senior Analyst at Digitas, and Vice President and Director Search Marketing at Karat USA. At Havas, her focus is on how practitioners can train and think like business analysts to unlock the true value of digital for business. Next in the middle is Matt Marcus, Senior Vice President and Executive Creative Director at RGA. Matt has been Director of Experience Strategy at Sapient, Worldwide Director of e-Business at Gucci, and founder of an early mobile startup. At RGA, he founded and runs the artificial intelligence practice. Last but not least, Justin Thomas-Copeland is President and CEO of RAPP-NY and a member of the Global Executive Board. Justin has been CEO of Wonderman Brussels, Chief Digital Officer of Novartis OTC in Europe, and CEO and COO of Wonderman Moscow. At RAPP, Justin is redefining the leading the flagship New York office. Please join me in welcoming this panel. I'd like to start off, I'm going to start with you, Marcus, since you have AI in your actual title. What's the state of the client marketplace today in terms of their motion into AI?
I think it depends on what side they come from, but on the media placement side, there's a ton of demand for it. On the consumer engagement side, which is where RJ is focusing most of our attention, it's a nascent market, but there are opportunities to be significant leaders in that from our point of view.
Okay, and Justin, because you all have different clients, obviously.
Yep. So we focus at RAPP on the consumer engagement side. We have a lot of demand for AI. Most of it is sort of investigatory. Do we need it? How do we use it? How do we apply it? But we really are sort of helping lead clients through the maze of what it is and how it can add value. We're focused on consumer value. That's what AI should generate. So that's our stance.
Okay. Sargi?
I would say for us, it's striking the balance between the consumer and the brand value. Where does it sit? How is it going to unlock more meaningful growth and opportunity for the business, as well as make sure that it's not disruptive to the consumer experience and engagement?
Okay. Justin, you talked about demand. What does the demand look like?
From a client perspective? Yes. It comes in all shapes and sizes. I mean, what we try to do, though, first of all, at RAPP is to understand what the broader business and marketing context is, right? So making sure there's a strategy that AI is rolling into. We have a lot of conversations that start out about technology, but they soon have to get to what is the business or marketing strategy that the brand is trying to achieve. So the demand is, we try to center it there. It doesn't always start there, but we do try and center it there. And that's only because we need to have relevance. Whatever we decide we're going to build for a client has got to be relevant for their business, and they need to go back to their stakeholders and have a story, and that's got to be a business story.
So is it typically the client saying, we have this problem, or are they saying, do you have some automated solution for us?
A bit of both. I mean, I'll give you one example very quickly. One of our clients is in the insurance sector, and they were looking to get first-time renters. You know, it's a portfolio play. You get them early, get them young, and then they grow as they sort of go through life stages. So how do you capture the millennial audience? How do you do that? And so one of the pieces of thinking we did was using chatbot technology in social spaces in order to trigger at least a thought around insurance at key moments for millennials, i.e. when they're graduating or they're going to their first job. They're sharing this content and these events in social media, and that's a good application of where AI could make sense. So we try to really have a point of relevance when we drive solutions.
So in that context, does the client care that they're using AI or machine learning?
Not interested, because that's a business strategy that we were trying to answer to. So the solution is AI, it's technology driven, but the story is a business story, it's a portfolio play story. So that's why we always try and get it back to the business.
And Marcus, is that what you're finding as well?
No, I think we have a bit of a different experience. For our clients, it does start with a business problem as well. For instance, the Cosmopolitan of Las Vegas came to us looking to figure out how they could capture more data from the people who come to the hotel, who come through OTAs, online travel agencies. And we recommended an AI solution in the space to build a kind of concierge one-to-one relationship to gather that data over time. That for them was a revelation. They didn't ask for an automated solution. They didn't ask for an AI assistant. But once we deployed it, then we had the conversations about, well, what does that mean to have all this data on this individual and to know everything that the digital platforms know about that individual, as well as all the knowledge that we could collect into one space to drive that person around the facility. And as a result, we had a huge financial boon for them. I mean, we're up almost 30% in on-premise spend. So you can use these technologies to really nudge individuals in space in real time.
So it sounds like the clients, I mean, you know, we've got an AI conference, but the clients are, it sounds like they're not caring that it's really AI.
I think it depends. When it's a behind-the-scenes AI piece, I think they see it as just a technical solution. When it's a consumer-facing AI experience, that's where the conversations come in about how are our consumers going to react to this? Are people using these kinds of technologies? And that's where we lean on the scale of kind of the Alexas, the Google Homes coming in the marketplace. We're seeing the ramp of those into consumer spaces at the same scale of the iPhone. And if we know that the iPhone had a radical effect on the way we do business, we can only expect that access to these kind of digital assistants is going to have that same level or more effect on the way we do business.
So that leads to the obvious question of data. And I know Sargi is basically a data queen. So where is data today? We've got data flooding in from everywhere. And I know the answer to this, but is there too much data?
Yes and no.
Well, yes and no.
Well, it's interesting you say that, Chuck, because we believe fundamentally, first off, there's no shortcut to growth. When we have to make it viable for a business and from a sustainability standpoint, there is no shortcut. Data is intelligence by virtue of interpretation. Volume is no longer an equation factor here. It's more about the tools and technologies putting together the patterns at a scale where intelligence can be drawn faster. So with the AI, with the automated machine learning or technologies, the volume is out. It's more about what are we doing with that data, whether it's big, small, structured, unstructured, and that's where the clients are focusing on and we're focusing on.
So what happens when you approach a client or they approach you and you start to look at their data and you find out it's a mess?
Wow. Well, there's always an organized approach to this. If there is a mess, then there is a roadmap to fix it. And it's about identifying what are the quick wins that we can fix and accelerate versus what is going to require a more bigger approach to organize the data infrastructure. Of course, there is about what are we looking to measure? Ultimately, what are we looking to analyze and what is the outcome we can deliver for them? From there on to say, what is the capability and how much of a mess is going to create an implication for that? If there is no implication, then we pivot on to a different solution as much as possible. But a lot of times with the Google, with the Facebook, the Twitters, and the big companies, all of that data is real time. So it's not about one solution where if one thing falls apart, then the whole strategy falls apart. There are a lot of substitutes. And I think this is the beauty of the industry, that all of the big growth that we've seen has democratized data access. It's no longer one player that can have the full spectrum. It's a few different spectrums that can give a more richer insight.
So dealing with data, instruction, so forth, are you dealing more with IT departments these days?
That's actually a great question. The way we operate is, and a lot of times what we're seeing from the client side is those silos are no longer existing. I mean, when we think about the role of a chief technology officer and their team versus a chief strategy officer versus their team, those lines are blurring because technology no longer sits in one department. It's implications for multiple business holders and stakeholders. Because to your client's perspective, the insurance client, there is the sales and account management team that has an implication of the AI. And from your standpoint, there is the on-the-ground staff in the hotel. So there are multiple people who are touching data and have a direct implication on their line of business. So it's no longer just the chief technology officer, but we do work with them, and they welcome the change.
So from an agency perspective, does that make it easier or more difficult?
I think I'm going to be the optimist. I'm a diehard optimist. I think it's a good thing because there is no longer a limited approach to agencies. I mean, we are seen as business partners. Like 10 years ago, how often were clients looking at media agencies or creative agencies to put a consumer experience that's powered by tech together? And it has happened today because there are no silos on the client side and there are no silos on the agency side to think as their business partners.
But great point about real time. Are you both finding, Marcus, Justin, that things are becoming much more real time from a data perspective?
We are, absolutely. I mean, one of the things I would say is we welcome and we love this whole focus on data. I think the new economy, the Googles and the Airbnbs have put a focus on that, not just from a privacy standpoint, but the use of data to drive relevance. For us, it's back to the future. RAPP, we've been doing direct and data marketing for 50 years, right? So from our standpoint, it's something that we're very open to. What we see, though, is there is a need for real time. What we're doing to respond to that is we're working close with media agencies, as an example. So we look at first-party and third-party data. We look at audience building and understanding, the patterns that we see, and then using direct and dynamic content to deliver on that. So there is a need for us to be in time or real time. That's just the way the world is, and that's the speed that we have to be activated.
Matt, what do you think?
Yeah, I think from our perspective is we're using machine learning on these consumer-facing experiences, and we're generating real-time responses and real-time insights out of the experiences that consumers are engaging with from a utility perspective. We are doing the ad placement positioning using some machine learning opportunities, and that real-time data is incredibly valuable. It's actually the only way you can inject something into somebody's experience. But in reality, our goal is to make people draw that out. We want people to ask for it, which is why our focus on these kind of consumer-facing AIs, where the consumer is controlling that experience, as opposed to an interruption space where we're trying to insert something, we find much more valuable.
So that sounds very much like what Carmeletta was talking about opting in versus opting out. Are you seeing that? That sounds like that kind of approach.
Yeah, and that's a fascinating perspective, right? So the traditional opt-in is click this button if you would like to get more information from us, or you would like to receive our ads. But in a world where you can access utility, where you can query a brand, right? We're building brands that you can query, ask questions of, and they respond in real time with whatever information they have, whether it's dynamic or static information. That's an opt-in of a different kind, and that's an opt-in that feels more human. Now, we're not building agents that present themselves as human ever. We know that if you build an agent that presents itself as human, that people can get angry at it. So these agents are designed to know their technology and present themselves as technology. But because as a consumer you are asking for that utility, we think we've solved that next level opt-in.
And consumers these days are, a lot of consumers, as I'm sure you all know from your research, they want to deal with an agent versus a person because for some reason, they believe they're going to get better data as a result. Are you seeing that with the brands you're dealing with?
I mean, we are for sure, and they are getting better data. And we model our agents after the best employee in the environment that we are building, if we're building for a physical environment, and then we augment that with dynamic data in real time. So you get more information. And there's some things, for instance, in the Cosmopolitan, which is one of the clients we can talk about, for that client in particular, they have one of the most amazing art collections I've ever seen, and nobody in that facility can give you an art tour, but the agent can, right? So Rose is the digital agent that we built for them, and Rose can give you an art tour across 5 floors that nobody else can deliver. So we can build new service options on top of these things.
So it sounds like then that agents are for brands are having to become much more service-oriented. Sargi, is that what you're seeing?
Yeah, and I think from our perspective, when we're talking about the agents or any of these intelligence mechanisms coming to play, it's about what role do they play in a consumer and a business standpoint, right? So for you, it's about how could you enhance the experience of staying at that hotel and learning more about that property, because it's not about the moment in time when they're staying, but how do you bring the customer back? When we talk about the privacy and the opt-in, at the end of the day, consumers, whether it's ad blockers or privacy regulations or stuff, it's all about respecting humans, right? As brands, we respect humans, and it's our duty to do that as marketers as well. So it's all about using technology and respecting their privacy to bring them in, not just in that moment, but also how do you create that engagement long term. So I think, yes, service, sometimes it's about automating processes, sometimes it's about accelerating learning. It depends on where and how you can use the technology to augment the business value.
Justin?
Yeah, I would say there's definitely a shift of looking at marketing as service and marketing as utility. One example we have in our network, we work with a car manufacturer, and we've been managing their loyalty program for a number of years. We've made a shift in the past couple of years to an agent-based model, because we understand that the car experience can change with every drive. So now that agent is on your phone. So when you're driving your car, if there's a problem or if there's something that you need, you have that in your pocket. You have that right beside you. So the loyalty programs become much more marketing as service, real time, in time. And I think that's a shift that we're seeing more and more of. And it's about relevance, and it's about being there at the moments that really matter. So we really drive to that.
So that sounds like it's a new positioning for brands.
It's a new way for brands to behave. It's a new way of brands to learn about their customers. It comes with challenges because, back to the data point, there are now much more data points, many more that you have to understand. You look for trends in new places. And then as a brand, you have to respond to that. So that takes stakeholder management, because very often it's not just the focus of marketing or a function of marketing that has to respond. It could be sales support. It could be customer service. It could be after sales from an automotive standpoint. So it does mean that brands have to start to behave differently as well.
And do you have to convince them of that?
You have to help them. You have to be in the boat with them. You have to be part of that journey. It's not about just loading up the PowerPoint and telling them what they have to do. You have to really be part of that journey so that they learn, and you're learning, we're learning with them, because it's new for them, but it's also new for us.
And Matt, what are you finding? Is it the same for you, that you're having to bring them along, or are they with you all the way?
We've had a couple that have come to us that are with us all the way. They've seen these experiences elsewhere. They want them over kind of large swaths of their organization. There are others that we have to bring along. However, in the last couple pitches I've been in where we've brought AI solutions, they've thanked us for those and said, I would have been surprised if you didn't bring one. And I found that really fascinating because we didn't present them necessarily as an AI solution. We presented it as a new way to drive utility. But they're starting to recognize it. So I think the conversation is out there, and the smart clients want to be on the cutting edge, and so they're looking for those kinds of opportunities.
So you're dealing with AI in the agency, in the whole agency itself. Do you get called in by other parts of the agency? Hey, we need some AI stuff here?
I get called in not because we need some AI stuff. I get called in because they have an awesome idea. They know what they want to do, but they don't necessarily know how to do it to scale, right? And so one of the things that we've put into place is we've developed a number of internal methodology and processes that allow us to deliver these things in a replicable fashion so we can do it economically and deliver for our clients economically. Because our goal is to get something up fast, quick, because we want to drive lots of iteration against these experiences. We never do it right the first time. We do it just well enough that we can get enough learning in real time to keep tweaking the models and iterating on them.
So over time, do you see your role going away? I don't mean.
I hope not.
No, but the role of AI being a specific thing in an agency versus it simply being part of the fabric.
Yeah, I mean, we see this like mobile, right? So we used to have a mobile social lead, and that kind of spread itself into the agency as people got comfortable, understood it. The technology barrier has dropped significantly. The packages that are out there that you can plug and play to drive machine learning, natural language processing, visual acuity systems, those are easy to get and easy to understand these days. So my role is to inspire, to act as a center of excellence, and to help distribute some knowledge, but mostly it's just happening.
So do you have a lab?
We've got a group that's designed to build some prototypes, look at new technologies, build partnerships, and help different teams as they start to think about what kind of solutions they want to put in place. We can help sharpen those focuses.
Sorry, how does your agency deal with that?
So we do have dedicated experts across the globe for research and development in those components as well. We take pride in the fact that it's when we're putting solutions together for clients, organically we make sure that every connection point that can or will have a value proposition for the consumer as part of their decision journey is represented in the room. So we don't approach as how do we answer this brief from a channel perspective. It's more about how do we put the right solutions together that's going to deliver the results the clients are looking for. And technology is by virtue of that underpinning everything. Like we talk about social search, all of those, you don't need those as separate independent figureheads now. They are organically fused into every single project. The same cases with AI and machine learning, those people have to be part of the equation. Because we are all hard pressed that yes, at the high level, we need to have those great, impactful experiences, and they need to be turned around in a week, 2 weeks, 48 hours. How do we do that? How do we make sure that the brand equity and the essence of that experience stays, while also making sure that the process gets faster?
And Justin, how does your group do it?
So we have, similar to RJ, we have a center of excellence for technology. So we have about 24 technologists around the world, and they form a virtual community. They use technology to keep that community alive. And it means that we have the infusion of ideas, pilots, prototypes from around the world across different sectors. It means that in New York, I don't have to replicate that and build that. So it's good from a business management standpoint, but also more importantly from a speed of service. So I have one of my SVPs is focused on technology, and he sits in every briefing. He sits actually with the creative team and the strategy team. So we work in a very mobile and agile way, and then he pulls in from the center of excellence around the world as and when needed. So that allows us to be at scale and be quick, and really just be on point on what's happening in the world of AI, machine learning, etc.
So Justin, I know you're a techie at heart, as a lot of people in this room are. What do you see as the role of the technology companies these days? Because as Ken Aletta spoke about earlier, you've got all these competitors who were theoretically friends, and you've got tech companies. What's their play?
So, I mean, I am a technologist, so you've obviously looked at my LinkedIn. No, it's fine. I think the thing is, first of all, we've all got to be comfortable with technology. Just in the industry, it is an underpinning that's not, it's only going to get stronger, okay? I think the role of the platforms is an important role. I think what we need to do as agencies is work out how do we play with them? How do we play together? How do we learn together? And how do we go on journeys together? So I think, you know, there was a talk earlier about the disintermediation of the agency through the platforms. I actually think it's about us coming together and forming new propositions, new ideas. You know, just in the past month, we've had sessions with Google for one of our clients with a big idea that we have. It's up to us to take the step forward. I think platforms will continue to play an important role, though. I think they are innovating at speed. They're investing at scale. And they really want to drive different and new experiences that we can all benefit from, including our brands. I think we just have to find out how we do that. So for me, it's a positive. I'm an optimist. I think we've all got to understand that technology is just going to be part of how marketing works. It's not going anywhere. It's just going to be amplified.
And Matt, what are you finding with the tech companies? Are they your friends or your competitors?
We don't really see them as our competitors. We bring them in as partners. They're deploying technology at scale that we could never replicate, and we're using them as plugins to our experiences. So, you know, Google, for instance, we're leveraging their cloud platform for their fantastic NLP capabilities, natural language processing. But what we can offer is not something that they necessarily focus on. It's not their desire to build these engaging consumer experiences that express a brand perspective. They're looking to build tools and technology that may drive utility, but ultimately are designed to gather data, right? So their NLPs get better, right? So they want all the language coming through their systems so they can train their systems to be smarter systems. And so we bring all those partners in as partners. And the most interesting spaces are the small startups. There are a slew of startups out there that are doing just amazing work and allowing us to cobble together these fantastic solutions that otherwise, as an agency, we couldn't put together in real time.
So what are you finding are the hot areas of AI right now? Where the home, the smart speakers fit, Google Home, Alexa and so forth? Is it voice? Is it chat? Is it bots? Sargi, what are you finding?
When we put it in the context of home, I would say smart home is the new smart home. You know, when we think about how the evolution of these technologies into that ecosystem of our environment fits, it's, you know, I'll build on Matt's point, is to say those experiences in conjunction together allow for a richer experience for the brand. So no longer can it be, well, I'm going to do my Google strategy for search here, and I'm going to do my home strategy there. It's how do you connect, leveraging the Google ecosystem with the consumer that is leaned in or opt-in or is giving you that data point. It's also saying, well, if this customer is a Google customer, what does their behavior look like on an Amazon platform? And how do you create those connections that might all sit in the same environment, yet give you the ability to fluidly move from one to the other? And that's what we focus on.
Matt, what are you finding?
I mean, the hot areas for us are assistant-based technologies. We're looking to build queryable brands for our companies.
Voice assistants or just?
Well, voice is difficult because voice hasn't been solved yet at a platform level. It's hard to plug into Google Home. It's hard to plug into Amazon Echo. It's impossible to plug into Siri. So those haven't been solved yet. We're building solutions that are agnostic of the platform. So we're building a lot of SMS-based solutions that are text-driven because they can easily be ported to voice. So some of our clients are building their own apps that do text-to-voice for on-location assistant opportunities. If you build it in text first, then it can go to Facebook, it can go to SMS, it can go to whatever distribution channel we want. And once the voice platforms for the in-house speakers solve the issue of how to authenticate an AI from another partner and give consumers a sense of security that in dealing with a third-party AI brought to you through an Alexa or a Google Home, that you're protected. And we're probably one or two innovations away from that. It's probably a blockchain solution that somebody will develop, either a startup or one of the big guys, and that should open the floodgates.
Justin, what do you think? Text, voice?
We're doing a lot in text, not in voice. We started out, so I mentioned the insurance brand. We have a B2B tech brand as well, where we're using text-based bots. And it's really to present brand as service and drive brand by utility, as well as understanding of preferences of the consumer. So we're using it really as learning programs. I think there's a lot of value that we haven't yet, I think, maximized the value of learning from bot-based programs, and where people want to be driven and understand and experience the brand in new ways. That's really powerful for us and really powerful for brand strategy. So we're using a lot of that technology, and even on our own healthcare website, we've actually got a little bot. So we're doing it ourselves as well for our own learning.
Okay. I would say to that, Chuck, is I'm going to have a little bit of a controversial view here. I would say that for brands and for us as practitioner, I think we almost have to accelerate the focus on voice. Last year's stats, 25% of Google searches were already voice. ComScore studies project that by 2020, 50% of all search queries are going to be voice-led. When we think about the penetration of all the speakers going into the houses, people are already conversing with those voice-based mechanisms at a very fast pace. And it's only going to grow as the global footprint of these giants grow. I think it's our duty right now to say, instead of thinking of experiences of, say, text or visual, is to say, we need to voiceify the content. And what does that look like? So as a brand, when I'm building my content strategy, it's no longer about the screen. It's about what is the consumer expectation and how do I connect it? And if you are a hotel brand and you're engaging in the room, it's how do I make sure that when I'm talking to a bot versus when I'm engaging with my own personal assistant on my Google Home saying, book my flight ticket or book my hotel reservation, how does the brand engage in that connection point?
Yeah, and I would just add to that, right? We see this is the third wave and evolution of brand experience. It started with brand marks that separated you from the consumer from the business. For the last 20 years or so, it's been interfaces that separated you, and that's where all this focus has gone. How do you express a brand? How do you introduce a brand when there is no interface, when it's just voice? And that's the thing that we're struggling with and we're developing new approaches to try and solve for. There will always be some level of digital interface, but in a voice world, how do you express a brand perspective? That's the trick.
So for the future, you probably all saw last week Google Duplex. So a computer can call a person, make a reservation, the person has no idea that it's a computer. Domino's, on the other hand, has created voice answering, so the person calls on the phone and they're talking to a computer to order pizza. Where does that go long term?
I'll start it. So I watched the Google video like most people. From a pure utility perspective and from a brand behaving at scale, to be able to touch audiences using voice activation, can think of a myriad of use cases, from a brand DNA, also just from a disclosure, transparency perspective. People want to know who they're talking to. It will raise issues. You know, I did speak to a couple of clients, and they said, well, we would want to tell them that it's a machine. And then you tell them it's a machine, and then it's not the right experience. Then, you know, in the human's mind, it's something else. Like, I don't want to talk to a machine, I want to talk to someone. And it becomes a distraction. And so I think voice is something that we have to embrace. I think that using bot technology at scale, there is opportunity there, but I think there are questions around how does your brand sound, how does it behave, what is the disclosure that you're going to drive so that it's very transparent, because people want transparency today, right? We talk a lot about data, but you know, they want transparency, they want to be in control. And I think what that threw up in that video was who's in control. And I think brand directors and CMOs want to ensure that they stay true to their brand DNA, and they are transparent. So there are things to work through. But I liked it from a pure tech perspective. I'm a techie. I thought it was a great evolution, but it just needs to be looked at.
Matt?
It was super cool and scary. I think disclosure is critical, quite honestly, especially for brands, to know who and what you're talking to. But imagine, I mean, we all hate IVRs, right? Those phone trees are impossible. And,
get me to an agent.
Get me to an agent, right? Now, we back all our agents up with humans. They're never just chat-based assistants, because transferring over to a human makes it feel seamless and magical.
You'd be able to back them up with Google Duplex in the future.
Well, but I think that you always need to get a human. But the beautiful thing about that Google Duplex is that you could have an IVR experience that would quickly get you to the thing you wanted instead of having to work through the tree.
Right.
Yeah, incredibly intuitive. But I think where we're going in the future is, you know, there are going to be real challenges for us to discern what's real and what's not. We're seeing a lot of that with some of the Adobe technology that's come out. It's a real paradigm shift, and I think, you know, from a perspective of brands, they really got to be careful when they're deploying these things to make sure they're doing it in a way that is respectful of their clients.
Sargi?
I agree. I saw that video, and for me, yes, all of the concerns aside, I was like, well, that's a really, really brilliant IVR. It is. And the balance is going to be about the human touch aside from it, because there is only so much you can formulate from the patterns that they've learned so far. I mean, they have been learning ever since that voice button on Google came up. And this is the culmination of all that intelligence coming together to say, how do we now bring it to a next level? Privacy, yes, people want to disclose. And at what point the connection between that automated IVR to a human, that is where the magic lies, and I think I'm very excited for that future.
So in the future, though, realistically, you'll be able to say, hey Google, order me a pizza, and that computer calls the Domino's computer. They don't need voice. They're two computers. They can just get the pizza.
It's funny, and we call this sneakerware, right? So, yeah, the integration between the Google computer and the local pizza joint, right, could physically happen if a technologist worked that out, right? But the easiest way to make that connection is through human speech, right? So that is a version of sneakerware, right, where, you know, in the old days, to get data from one terminal to another, you'd walk it across and plug it in, and behind the scenes, nobody knows, right? But voice solves that. So it's an amazing integration point. To use voice even from one computer to another, because we can understand that very quickly and deploy it immediately, as opposed to an integration which would take, you know, months perhaps.
And I would say, to add to that, is the value proposition for ordering a pizza versus a $20,000 car or a $150,000 healthcare treatment is significantly different.
Yes.
So yes, while the transactional low value props where the implication for a customer is not that high, yes, that connection might not require it. But whenever that decisioning process stakes go up, I think that's where the human continues to have the larger share.
Okay. Questions from the audience?
Looks like we have a couple. Start with, you want to tell us who you are, where you work, or did you not have a question?
Sure, I do.
Oh, you do?
You've answered so many of them.
Oh, okay.
My name's David Prince, and one of the things, Scott Galloway, you've probably heard of, he likes talking about these dystopian futures, and he talks about how Alexa will get to this point. I don't want to make this an Amazon question, but his example is You say, Alexa, I'm now having a barbecue for 12 on Saturday. Make it happen. And Alexa knows beer, meats, corn, sauce, what am I missing? Music, a whole lot of stuff. And it disintermediates the brands because it'll either use an algorithm based on my preferences or the best sellers or, in this case, Amazon, what they want to sell me. And it's a $20 pizza instead of a $100,000 healthcare situation. But how does that permeate outside of just that one use case?
I think I'm gonna start for that because I'm very passionate about Amazon. I think there's a few components to that. There's a few components to that dystopian view. First off, right now, as it stands, yes, Amazon is best poised to take advantage of that because they have a very rich context of their customer's life. Because everything sits behind that login, and they have history of how you go through your life changes. The structure that takes to get to that level is to understand, well, does this person actually throw a lot of parties? So is it a recurring request for this person? Second is there a skill where they've actually started creating events or parties or lists where this kind of purchase has happened? What is the frequency of what they're buying? Is beer something that this person buys frequently? And is that connection between barbecue and beer exists for this particular customer or a new customer? That's a level of analysis and data components that needs to sit at a very advanced level. Outside of Amazon, it would be very difficult. I mean, there are companies like Alibaba or WeChat, or Flipkart or Paytm. These are the companies, yes, they can definitely get there. But for components where the utility factor for a consumer is limited to a very particular reason, it's going to be very hard pressed for that to happen without creating no walled gardens. That's just my point.
No, I think you're right. I think it depends on frequency, building up the data profiles, and then being able to activate that request. I think brands will struggle to have that sort of data depth, absolutely. And I don't know if they want to replicate that either.
I'm trying to zero in and understand the AI-orchestrated customer experience. So with the example of the Cosmopolitan, for example, I would be fascinated to hear you get a little more concrete than theoretical and tell me, what are the top 2 or 3 customer experience interactions that drove the 30% increase in on-premises, revenue? And what was the AI's role in that, experience and that interaction?
So I'll generalize this a bit, but when you travel, right, and you get to an environment, you almost have no idea what's around and what to engage in. The Cosmopolitan's got 20 restaurants. It's got 6 bars spread across 4 vertical floors, a spa, 3 pools. It's hard to know where to go. The interactions that people are engaging with are, I'm hungry. Where can I eat? Do you have Italian food? Where should I get a drink? Tell me a secret. Tell me a joke. Right? Are you real? Are you a human? It becomes a choose-your-own-adventure experience. But what we do is take that input and we pivot into a set of knowledge that we can deliver answers for. And then the agent itself can book you a reservation. Right? So we are getting people, when they are hungry, into a situation where we can quickly turn them into a paying customer, right? Can I book you a reservation at that restaurant? Can I recommend a drink for you here? Can I have that sent up to your room? So we can very quickly use nudge experiences and behavioral economics to push people towards experiences that they might otherwise leave the venue for, right? If they're hungry, they might decide to go out. But if they ask Rose, do you have any Italian food? Rose can tell you exactly where to go, and she can book you a reservation, and it feels so magical that you just want to do it. Like, yes, absolutely, book me that reservation. Great, you're locked in, 8:30, see you there.
But what is the AI's role? Like, is it just the NLP in that interaction?
In that interaction, it's a... Yeah, in that interaction, a lot of it is just NLP pulling from static data, right? So we take a knowledge management approach to AI where we look at what's all the extrinsic knowledge that you could possibly know about this place, what's all the insider intrinsic knowledge that we can capture, we tag all that, and then what are all the dynamic systems we can connect this bot into. And so that bot then, depending on whatever NLP is coming in, makes a decision. Am I delivering dynamic data? Am I delivering static data? But to the consumer, it's data they don't know, and they would otherwise have to go search around and find. So by building a queryable brand, you can immediately solve the global navigation issues that I know as we built websites for years. Took months to decide what word you would put up there and then what page you would build under that. That goes away in a NLP queryable world.
Yeah, so far Google Duplex has done no evil, but it's been 2 years since Microsoft's Tay went on Twitter and immediately started mimicking hate speech. It's been only a few months since Facebook's algo started enabling targeting of Jew haters and things like that. What are the unintended consequences each of you have come across? They don't have to be on that scale, that you could share with us and something you learned from.
I would say, so in the insurance example that I gave, where we were focused on sort of giving an experience and allowing these millennials to come into the portfolio, one of the things that we didn't bank on was actually internally at the brand, which is what are the processes that we have to put in place to really deliver on this, where you don't have a fully automated system to go from query to actually taking out the policy, where you have agents involved. And so there we understood very quickly that the business processes had to be re-engineered. And that was a lot of work, and that was almost, at the detriment of the great experience up front, to then not being able to fulfill or having to change the way the business processes worked in order to keep that experience alive. That's a common consequence where maybe brands believe they're ready, and then the speed and expectation of these different customer types is just at a scale that they're not used to. And so they have to change and re-engineer their processes. That's something that we encounter a lot. But now we get ahead of that as much as we can.
I'll tell you a funny story. Rose is designed to send you a text message 6 weeks after you leave the Cosmopolitan. And it sends you a message late at night that says, "You up? I miss you. Would you come back? And I've got a special offer for you," right? It's the Cosmopolitan. She's a cheeky bot. Their brand proposition is just the right amount of wrong, right? So we walk a line there. The unintended consequence was a couple that was sharing an iMessage account. And the wife got incredibly upset that Rose was texting her husband and called the Cosmopolitan, and we settled it. But it does bring up that these agents are mostly reactive, but when they become proactive and start reaching out, what happens then? That's things we don't really fully understand yet, and that was kind of a fascinating and fun experience.
Sargi?
I would say that fortunately, have worked for a lot of years in highly regulated industries such as pharma and finance. So by virtue of that, we think more proactively around what can be the implication and how do we proactively work on safeguarding the brands against that. I would agree with Justin. It's more been around the operational implications of businesses versus more of the consumer-facing PR-related implications that have come up yet.
Okay, I think we're out of time. Chuck, panel, thank you guys very much.
Sargi.
Thank you.